No Joy by Spanish Love Songs.
It's so hard to love when you're dying in an empty room. We won't get what we want 'cause we can't sort it out. Everything in its place. A sentimental heartache. Waiting for the sun to explode.
This is the LA Outfit's fourth studio album, released the 25th of August via Pure Noise Records. No Joy consists of 12 tracks and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2020's Brave Faces Everyone EP, or LP rather, sorry. In the band's words, it may not seem immediately obvious on an album called No Joy, this is tongue-in-cheek of course, but I've grown bored with the darkness, shares vocalist Dylan Slocum. I've spent 3 years finding out that all of my grand plans cannot stop the world. My complaining doesn't make me happy. And the happiness I do find is finite. This is an album about making peace with that. They go on, last quick note here before we get into the review. If Brave Faces Everyone was about mustering up the strength to barely break even in an increasingly bleak world, No Joy is finding the internal peace required to stay in the black.
Okay. A lot to
Yes.
digest.
A little bit to digest there. Let's talk real quick about Brave Faces Everyone.
Sure.
I remember you absolutely adoring that record when it came out.
It's a fucking phenomenal record. And no surprise, this album feels very similar, and I had almost the exact same reaction to it, which I just feel like Spanish Love Songs connects with me on like an emotional level, down to like hearing the description of the sort of like mood thought process behind the album and thinking to myself, yeah, I can like relate. And that's ultimately what I love about Spanish Love Songs so much, is they're just a band or an individual or a project that I find myself relating to so deeply in so much of what they say and how they translate it to this.
I didn't feel quite the same way about Brave Faces Everyone. It just didn't really resonate with me in that same way. But I think I agree now. I think that everything you are saying about this record, I feel similarly about.
I wonder if that's bad. You know what I mean? No, you know what I mean? It's just like, if it's like a certain state of mind that you have to be in to like really relate to this record, and that state of mind is that like the world is a bleak place.
No. I think it was more, which is funny too, because you figure like during the height of the pandemic, you would have related, like I would have related with it more. But,
sure, like it should have been, that should have been when it hit you.
It was one of those things where it was like, I don't know. I listened to the album and it sort of just like bounced off of me. It just didn't really sink in as much. This one, I got to spend a fair bit of time with, and yeah, this one's a relatable one. This is a solid effort from this band, and I think that for me personally, it speaks a lot more to me than they did in the past.
What's insane about this band is that like, it's almost like absurdist levels of performance art. In terms of how well they capture like the spirit of like Midwest emo. And
oh man, it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, it's just like they do it so well. It doesn't, but it practically enters like a state of parody, where it almost feels like they're making fun of a band like the Wonder Years or something.
Well, right, because it's at some point like a song will start off and you're like, did we really just use a lyric like that?
It's literally the opening track. It's in the first 10 seconds where it's like, I thought about you on the Autobahn. And I'm like, this is like in a sense, you have to be so bought in to not giggle at a line like that. You know what I mean?
It's also like that lead single, I think, Haunted, where it's like, I saw a dead body in the McDonald's parking lot, and it's like, well, now we're just writing about anything that comes to our mind,
right? Like if it feels like theater camp sometimes. Right. You know what I mean?
I mean, hard not to deny the Wonder Years comparison. I think emotionally, sonically, stylistically, they're cut from the exact same cloth, the exact same one.
Maybe inspired by, who knows?
Sure. Yeah, and I mean that with full due respect to each project. I like that those bands are similar. The songwriting is just so detailed and layered and unique to the individual. Like I think you can only go to this artist to hear these stories, which is something I always appreciate songwriting wise, because you can have every band under the sun writing about being a psycho or something about a dark void. We'll get into it. But like I can listen to this record and it's only this artist that can write track 3 and track 6 and track 9, because those are real world experiences that they are sharing with us, the listener.
Right. Like it's incredibly specific to the individual. And another quintessential example of this is that Hot Mulligan album from earlier this year.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it was very much like specific experiences. Granted, again, the overall genre of the, Water Parks is also like a completely different style, but a very similar vibe, right?
Yes.
Where it's like these are so incredibly personal to the individual that's what makes them stand out. It's not like you ever listen to a Spanish love song and you're like, man, did they? No, they didn't steal anyone's like energy.
No.
This is like truly the things you're getting from the experience of this individual, which is so fucking. It's like it completely like hypnotizes me in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like at some point you just listen to the storytelling on this album and you're on the edge of your seat.
Like I'm enthralled,
yeah.
fucking listening to like, where the fuck are we going? You're right. It's like a dead body in the McDonald's parking lot.
There's a track
like,
on
talk
here.
about a fucking setup.
There's a track on here and it's like you woke up in an ambulance or whatever and people are asking you who the president is. And it's like, holy shit. Like, I'm just like, I hang on every word that this vocalist says.
Right. And you think
Dylan.
about like the type of emo songs you grew up listening to and the sort of like, oh man, I feel like I'm gonna die. But it's like, to verbalize it so specifically to yourself is just like, it takes like a certain talent. Like most bands can't write this well.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And to some extent, with that in mind, it feels like this is also an artist who's of a dying breed in some capacity.
I don't know if I'd say that so much as maybe we haven't
I just feel like we have we have fewer artists like Spanish love songs nowadays.
I wonder if this is a case where it falls into sort of a outside of our general peripheral.
It might.
Where somebody might jump into the comments of this review and immediately be like, here's 11 artists that have come out in the last 3 years who, maybe haven't had a sort of breakout the way Spanish love songs is, but they are similarly attempting the same things, right?
Yeah.
All that being said, I also think like all the words and emotions throughout this album are just bathed in like the most lush instrumental soundscape that's ever been crafted. Like it's to say all of how capable this band is in terms of like their lyricism and like that specific writing style and how well they communicate their emotions. Like all of that would not work as well if it wasn't just like laid in this beautiful bed of the instrumentals throughout this record.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Like, I mean, you hit the nail on that earlier where it's just like, this is quintessential Midwest emo while also acknowledging that like these people are fucking talented at their instruments too.
Yeah, maybe Midwest emo is something where somebody's going to hear it and they're going to get caught up in the specifics, and I need them to understand. I'm just sort of like speaking to the tone, like the overall vibe that this record is sort of going for. Stylistically, it's not necessarily exactly those things, right? But overall, when you listen to it, that's like the closest genre your mind will drift to, right?
Yeah.
I think this band's ability to like really forge a connection with its listener and have them like empathize with the protagonists of this album and their struggles and like feel their experience and feel for them. And quite simply, this band is very good at making you feel things.
You're saying like your heart grew like 3 times larger listening to this? Or?
Yeah, it's just like I want the best for whoever is speaking from this album. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
whoever's voice is being captured in this album, whether it's the vocalist or whether it's another individual or whether it's all of them, right? Or whether it's like a completely fictional individual that like is meant to sort of capture a million different feelings. I really feel myself feeling for them, like the best characters that have ever been written in any other fiction, right? Some of the standout moments on here for me, Cleanup Crew feels like so embedded in reality that it's almost like being fed your own personal experience, but just spoken in like the sharpest, most elegant translation. So you get lines like, so fuck the garden and the yard we can barely tend to our dreams. Maybe a big life isn't ours. It's just life. It's just life to come treat me as a lesson.
Just like life to come treat me as a lesson.
Thank
you. You have it written down in your notes, but I'm Gonna Miss Everything is absolutely the standout for me as well. Why is it for you?
It's just like the most idealized version of every emo song that's ever been written. Like, I cannot stress enough how well this band works in the general sphere of this art form. Like, it's just watching like the brush strokes of one of the greatest painters of their generation. It's like this deep level of fucking emo. Like, bands think they can do this, and they need to go listen to this album to understand how it's actually done. You know what I mean? Like bands feel like children in a playground compared to the fucking adult in the room that is Spanish love songs. When I listen to a song like I'm Gonna Miss Everything, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's dire and tragic and fucking relentless, but it's so deeply rooted in reality and like the honest human experience. Like, overall, this record is like the polar opposite of escapism. Like, it makes you like sort of like sit with yourself,
really face your own demons.
Right, precisely, right, through like via their like experiences.
Wanted to quickly shout out Rapture Chaser as well, which like it's got like the theme on there where it's like, if you were looking in the face of the rapture, like, would you change? And the person they're talking to in that song is like, nah, I'm good. It's just such a, I don't know. It's one of those things where like, it's similarly as sobering, where it's like you're listening to that whole song play out and it's like the rapture is right there and you're really gonna like not change your ways. And that's how I interpret that song anyway. But
I'm with you. I think that is the correct interpretation of that song.
That song's huge. I think there's a lot of, the closing track on here is really great as well. I think that No Joy is a really impressive record.
Yeah, like, just overall, it's like, it's a weighty album and like it's gonna sit heavy on your shoulders, but I love it for that. Even when songs like Exit Bags are fucking almost suffocating in their sadness.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, yeah.
It's just a work of art. Like, it's a beautiful record. I easily give it a 5. It's a standout for me. It's exemplary within its own like genre. It's exemplary within the year, and I think it compares favorably to other records like the one from Hot Mulligan and the one from Water Parks, though it communicates a significantly quirkier style of this. But for me, they
get a
sort
similar
of
message across.
Right. Like, they exist in sort of the same universe of sort of like what they're trying to do. They're just getting to it in different ways. It's comparable to those records for me.
I can see this being a 5 for myself, but right now a 4.5 feels a little bit better.
Okay. Fair enough.
If I had to apply a ranking.